What is going on, guys? It's your boy Big Dawn and welcome back to another Destiny video. In today's video I'm going to be basically doing and going over all of my Titan builds for raids, strikes and other activities just like that. I did one of these a couple of days ago for my Warlock and it seemed to do pretty well. It was, well received. Quite a lot of people found it quite useful. So I thought, why the hell not do it on a Titan as well? I'm also going to be doing it on a Hunter. Expect that to be uploaded in a couple of days time. But first of all, let's just get the Titan out of the way. So first things first, we're actually going to be going over Striker now. I'm going to give you my general usage of Striker, whether I use it in a raid, strikes. I'm going to basically put weapons that I pair with it, armor pieces that I like to pair with the builds as well, and go over stuff. If you would like a detailed breakdown of all the armor pieces that I use and why I like certain armor pieces with certain perks, then please go and check out my Warlock build video. I think it's like the last 10 to 15 minutes I go over all the armors and why I have like certain perks and like a helmet like Ashes to Assets and Infusion. So definitely go check that video out first before you watch the rest of this one if you've not seen that one already. But anyway, the first build that I like to run for my Striker Titan would definitely have to be the Armamentarium Flashbang build. This is a little bit of a crowd control build that I like to run every now and then. And it seems to work really well, especially in the raid, the Wrath of the Machine. If there's like a really annoying enemy that deals a lot of damage in a short amount of time, and you're very scared of challenging them, mainly captains, especially like I said in the Wrath of the Machine, they're on Vosik and they're also on that axis, phase 1 and 2 I think. You have to kill the captains to get the Scorch Cannons. This build works very well against these captains. You can throw a flashbang, blind them, go in with your sword if you had one, and then just basically one hit them with that. So it's a very useful build for basically taking out high value targets and playing it very safe. It's a very safe build to play around with. The next one basically builds off of this, but rather than flashbangs you actually use lightning grenades with aftermath as well, and then you also put the aftershocks on down the middle so you get increased duration on your aftermath and your lightning grenade. Works extremely well when actually playing in heroic strikes, in raids, to basically block off areas and doorways. If you know there's an enemy spawn point where all the enemies funnel out of a doorway, the thing I like to do is throw a lightning grenade like above the door, and as soon as the enemies come out they'll just get one hit by the lightning grenade. Obviously they'll last even longer as well with us running aftershocks, so I mean it's really useful. The reason I like to use aftermath every now and then as well is if you went to go, for example, Titan Smash a captain in the Wrath of the Machine and he didn't die for some reason, then obviously the actual aftermath on the floor might end up killing him in like 1 or 2 hits extra. That's pretty much it for the first build. That's the main things that I like to do with my Striker. Another one that I do for fun at times is to actually run a Peregrine Greaves shoulder charge build, mainly if Airborne is on. That's the only other time I'll really seem to do this. Also works very well when paired with Brawler, and that's the increased melee damage modifier. So I mean, if them two modifiers are running a week, Brawler and Airborne, this is such a fun build to run with the Peregrine Greaves. It's amazing to mess around with. Just the main thing I like to point out as well is it's not always about being the best in the world, having the best build in the world or anything like that. It's about having fun as well. Obviously it's a game and you can have fun on it. Don't worry about trying to have a little bit of fun with a shoulder charge build. But anyway, let's move on to some of the Sunbreaker builds. So like I said, for Sunbreaker, it pretty much remains very stale actually when I like to use my Sunbreaker. There's only one setup that I would ever actually use. Suncharge for me, don't get me wrong, it is very good when paired with Brawler and Airborne. It absolutely shreds. Even with Solar Burn as well, the amount of damage you deal is insane. But for me, for my playstyle, I prefer Forge Master, just being able to throw more hammers, and obviously the hammers cause bigger explosions. I just find it more efficient to do that, and actually make more orbs for my teammates. That's just, again, personal preference. I also like to run Thermite Grenades. I've actually made a a video on Thermite Grenades in the past actually. They're very underrated. I don't see anybody use them other than like me and one friend of mine. Definitely give them a shot. If you've never tried a Thermite Grenade before, give them a shot, especially for strikes. I use them in raids as well. Anything PvE, I'll go with the Thermite Grenade. And they work extremely well if you have an Armamentarium and you actually throw them both down. So they're both basically, one wave will go out for one of the grenades and the other wave will go out. So it's just constantly pulsating from both of them. And it deals a hell of a lot of damage, especially in solo burn. Definitely give them a shot. As far as other builds go for Sunbreaker, I don't ever really seem to change up. I never really think any other perks are too good. I mean, you could go for a Sunspot build. Sunspot builds are, you know, fairly popular, especially when it comes to boss damage. Obviously, with all of the pools of fire that your hammers and stuff are going to be leaving on the boss, obviously it can deal damage over time, which can be very useful. But for me, for my playstyle, I'd never really like to switch it up too much. If you know me, and you know that I like to play very fast, I love the movement on a Titan. I love Titan skating, so for me, the exotic that I always use pretty much 9 times out of 10 is always going to be the Twilight Garrison. Twilight Garrison, for me, phenomenal exotic. Definitely get one if you can and try and learn how to Titan skate with it. It makes your life a hell of a lot easier. Not only that, you get the benefits of having extra heavy ammo for your heavy weapon and also special ammo. So I mean, 2 pluses, you know, for one exotic is great in my opinion. Being able to actually dodge out of damage, especially from stuff like boomers and captains. The taken captains, when they shoot those big black blinding orbs that deal a hell of a lot of damage, you can actually just jump and thrust to the side and skate and get out of the way of them very quickly. So that's one of the other huge benefits of running Twilight Garrison in my opinion. But like I said, as far as Sunbreaker goes, I don't really ever seem to switch it up. So anyway, let's move on to the Defender. So for Defender, I have a few builds that I do like to run at times. Now I have made a few build guides in the past, basically centered around just having fun with Force Barrier, with the, I think it's no backup plan gauntlets, and just running around with a shotgun, and it's a hell of a lot of fun. Definitely give it a shot if you've never tried it before. But for me, one of the builds I mainly seem to use when it comes to bubble is just with Weapons of Light. Every single time, Defender is mainly your PvE subclass, you know, it's the lord and saviour of PvE pretty much, you know. Being able to drop a bubble down where all your teammates can just go in there and not take any damage is extremely useful. Being able to buff everyone's damage as well with Weapons of Light, like I just said, extremely useful also, especially when it comes to those boss fight engagements. Bubbles become a very, one of the main staples, I would say, when it comes to raiding. See, Titans are very much, I wouldn't say needed, but are extremely useful to have in a raid team. Okay, having 1 or 2 Titans in your team makes all the difference in a raid, and I'm pretty sure much everyone else will agree with me on that. As far as things go, I don't really like to switch it up too much when it comes to my bubble. Obviously illuminated on there, so we get increased benefits when it comes to Blessing of Light or Weapons of Light. Increased duration of Ward of Dawn, which is basically just how long your bubble lasts. If you didn't need this and you needed to create more Orbs of Light, Gift of the Void may be a choice for you, as obviously you can create extra Orbs of Light for your teammates so they can get their supers faster, so you can just constantly exchange them. But yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to using a bubble. That's the only other sort of things I will do. Now I'm going to be going over things I used each build for, where I use them, all that sort of good stuff. So as a whole, let's start off with the Vault of Glass raid. Throughout the entire Vault of Glass raid, I will stick with bubble. I won't use anything else other than the Defender bubble. Couple of weapons that I like to pair with this build is the Fatebringer or the Vision of Confluence, so I can destroy the oracles throughout the entire raid. I may switch off every now and then to one of my other really good rolled scout rifles that I absolutely love, but for the most part I'll probably just stick with Vision of Confluence. As far as specials go, this Stone Wool shotgun that I've got, extremely good when it comes to actually killing the Praetorians at the opening scene of the Vault of Glass, and just the Minotaurs in general. It absolutely shreds them. Also shreds the Oracles as well. So a couple kills them in, I think it's 2 or 3 shots. So definitely an amazing shotgun to be using. I'll swap out to this raid sniper when it comes to actually damaging the Templar and Atheon in both of the boss fights. Definitely the best sniper for the raids in my opinion, unless you've got a god rolled like LDR or 1000 yard stare, or a longbow with triple tap casket mag, you know, spray and play, all that sort of good stuff. And then for heavy, obviously you've got the Galahorn, you've got the Sleeper Stimulant, you have, you know, Dart Drinker, you've got a couple of very good heavy weapons that you can switch from when it comes to boss damage in raids. But for the most part, Sleeper Stimulant for this one, for me, I definitely think Sleeper Stimulant is the best choice when it comes to damaging the Templar and Atheon. You can actually kill Atheon in one run of actually destroying one oracle each if you all have you know, Sleeper Stimulants, and you all just absolutely pellet him. It deals 300,000 damage per shot, so definitely that is the reason as to why I would use that. So yeah, basically, like I said, Defender is a general use class for me. Usable in any raid. I just use Vault of Glass for an example, just so you can sort of get an idea of what I mean when it comes to, you know, damaging bosses and using it to sort of protect your teammates. You know, in the down phases where it's just, you know, use killing trash mobs, you could switch to Blessing of Light just so you have a shield to work with, just so you don't die as easily, and then switch to Weapons of Light when it actually comes to the boss fight where you have to deal damage. I know for the Oryx challenge mode, a lot of people like to have a Blessing of Light and Weapons of Light bubble stacked in the middle, and then the two titans will basically run round and kill the 4 ogres. That works extremely well. So obviously you've got little parts where you can switch in and out of Blessing, you know, Weapons of Light and Blessing, you know, whenever you want to. But like I said, I used Vault of Glass as an example for that. As far as Striker go, the main times I will use Striker is only when Arcburn is on. And that's pretty much it. Whenever Arcburn is on, I will switch to my Striker. The previous week, actually, we just had Arcburn and Specialist on, and this was actually one of the setups that I was running when it came to running the Arc Strikes. Basically, slapped Aftershocks on. I like to use Death from Above just because I feel it's a little bit more comfortable, but Aftermath is just as good as Death from Above in my opinion. Lightning Grenades on there just because they, in my opinion, are some of the best grenades for PvE, especially when you place them above the doorways, like I said, you know, a couple of minutes ago. But like I said, when it comes to Striker, for me, hands down, only ever seem to use it when Arc burns on. Defender for me is my raiding subclass. You know, whenever I'm doing a raid, Defender's the, you know, the clear and obvious choice. They're always the one that I end up going for, just so. I'm a big fan of, you know, team playing subclasses. If it's not just benefiting me, if it benefits my teammates as well, I'll use it. That's a big reason behind me using Sunsinger all the time on my Warlock. You know, when I get the Viking Funeral stacks to buff my teammates' damage. That's the main reason why I use Sunsinger. Okay, so that's a little bit of a insight tip to, you know, the reason why I main Sunsinger on my Warlock for PvE. One of the big things, Sunbreaker is one of my go-to subclasses for solo burn, and also if I'm just, you know, general play, if I'm doing patrol, if I'm doing story missions, Sunbreaker for me is just a very fun subclass to mess around with. Definitely an absolute beast for anything PvE related. Being able to throw one hammer at an enemy, watch them explode, and then chain, you know, fire explosion damage into all the other enemies with explosive pyro is absolutely insane in my opinion. So definitely, you know, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not really else too much, you know, for me to go around. As far as exotics go, I pretty much only use the Twilight Garrison or Armamentarium. There is a couple of other exotics that you could use, like Rune Wings, but for me, they're broken, and I don't see any heavy ammo drop or anything. So for me, Rune Wings, I don't use them, like I said, broken. Helm of the Saint is a very good defender exotic, but for me, Twilight Garrison is my BB, so I can't swap out of it for some reason. Armamentarium, situational. I'll maybe use it here and there depending on the burns and stuff in strikes. If I want an extra grenade, or maybe I'm doing a raid where I can, you know, maybe take advantage of putting the lightning grenades above doorways. That's maybe a time when I'll switch out. Or if I want to flashbang some of the captains in the Wrath of the Machine. Exotic boots, Peregrine Greaves, you know, unless I'm shoulder charging or doing something out of the ordinary, Peregrine Greaves will be for that. That's pretty much it. Hopefully this gives you an insight of to how I play my Titan. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel for future Destiny content. Thank you so much for watching, and peace.